This episode of FineScale Modeler's New Product Rundown features Airfix's Big Hellcat, Ryefield's Sherman, and Doll and Hobby George's Land of the Giants diorama.
New Product Rundown brought to you by Hobby Zone USA, your source for hobby storage solutions, hard-to-find hobby tools, and aftermarket modeling needs. And by Cult TV Man's Hobby Shop, the place to go to for science fiction and fantasy kits, details, masks, decals, and more.
Welcome to FineScale Modeler's New Product Rundown, the twice-monthly look at the latest kits and more. I'm Aaron Skinner.
And I'm Elizabeth Nash. We have a packed show, starting with a kit that's been getting a lot of attention, Airfix's 1/24th scale F6 F5 Hellcat.
This is the aircraft that epitomizes U.S. naval air power in the Pacific War. With more than 12,000 built, it was reportedly responsible for 75% of U.S. Navy aerial victories.
That fame there means there have been an abundance of kits, but relatively few large-scale offerings. Only Hasegawa and Trumpeter have released a 1/32nd scale Hellcat.
This is the first in 1/24th, and it has plenty to offer, both in terms of detail and options.
First, get a feel for the sheer size of the airplane. The wingspan will end up being nearly 22 inches. The surfaces are marked by fine recessed panel lines and rivets.
The airframe parts also feature subtle oil canning, a warping of the thin sheet metal skin of the plane between attachments. It's a nice effect that should make the finished model look sharp.
The inside of the fuselage has molded frames and longerons.
While the center and outer sections of the lower halves of the wings are common, the kit provides optional upper halves to pose the wings extended or folded. The latter may make storing the finished model easier.
In addition to spars for the center and outer wings, the unique Grumman wing fold detail includes end pieces and brackets. Sturdy optional braces lock the wings in the extended or stowed positions.
The ailerons are posable, and they include separate tabs. The rudder and elevators show similar detail with separate tabs and raised and recessed surface details. The flaps for both the inner and outer wings can be displayed either up or extended through the use of optional actuators.
Also in the wings are detailed bays for the Hellcat's 6 50 caliber machine guns, including frames, ammo cans, and chutes. Optional doors allow the bays to be posed open or closed.
The inner wings have the bays for the main gear, comprising frames and supports, plumbing, multi-part legs with large alignment tabs and separate oleo scissors, and detailed hubs with separate tires. Optional gear doors allow for the aircraft to be posed on the ground or in flight. The same is true for the tail wheel.
Cockpit detail includes a floor with rivets and wiring, and separate frames, foot troughs, control stick, and rods, firewall, and pedals.
The multi-part seat features a separate pad and harness and attaches to the rear bulkhead with a separate headrest. There's an instrument panel with clear dials. The clear frame also supplies the windshield and canopy with sharp frames, as well as lights and gun sight.
The walls have frames, controls, switches, and consoles. There's more detail behind the cockpit, including tanks and racks of radios.
Up front, the big double wasp engine is represented by two nicely molded rows of cylinders with separate push rods that fit around a central cylinder and separate reduction gear housing, air intake pipes, exhaust pipes, and more. The ignition wire manifold is included, and a color-coded diagram in the instructions shows how to wire it.
The prop is mostly a single part with a separate hub, and the engine mounts are here to attach it to the fuselage.
Much of the cowl ring is a single part, except for the surround for the chin intakes, which opens the way to full trunking. Many of the cowl panels are separate so the engine can be better displayed. Optional cooling gills can be posed open or closed.
In addition to the typical Hellcat centerline fuel tank, given in two styles with separate straps, the kit provides rockets and 500 and 1,000-pound bombs to hang under the wings.
Cartograph decals supply markings for 4 F6Fs. Paper doll of the U.S. Navy with great grimacing nose art, another U.S. bird aboard USS Randolph in May 1945, a Royal Navy fighter involved in the East Indies operations in spring 1945, and a French Navy Hellcat from the Indochina War in 1953.
Wow, there is so much to like about Airfix's Big Hellcat, and I expect we'll see quite a few of them on show tables in the near future.
We're going to need a bigger table. Now, anyone who's been annoyed by the recent rash of Panthers and Tigers should be pleased that we have a new Sherman in 1/35th scale from Ryefield.
This version represents the M4A3E8 version, right? Is that it? With horizontal volute spring suspension.
Known as the Easy 8, it entered service after D-Day and first saw action beginning the winter of 1944.
It would go on long after World War II, including Korea and other conflicts.
Ryefield's lower hull is divided into the belly with sharp raised details, sides, rear plate with separate hatch, and a one-piece transmission cover with cast texture and number.
The suspension is designed to be workable, handy if you want to articulate it over groundwork. As such, each bogie comprises a mount, bracket, springs, shock absorber, cast arms, and road wheels with good bolt and hub detail and even sidewall lettering on the tires.
Optional drive sprockets are provided, but there's no indication of which one is appropriate for use here, so check your references. Idlers and inner and outer return rollers finish the work.
Replicating T80 tracks, the individual links build from separate front and rear pads that sandwich the double pin assemblies. The center guides are also separate. A jig aids assembly.
Much of the upper hull is a single part with molded cast texture and numbers on some panels, as well as weld seams, attachments, and more.
The rest is added with the engine deck, posable engine, and crew hatches, sponson undersides, thin fenders, rear panel, tools, spare track links, and jerry cans.
There are multi-part posable exhaust deflectors, but I'm told that they may represent a later version. It's unclear if that version saw service in Europe in World War II as depicted by the marking options, so check your references.
Molded in two parts, the turret has nice cast texture and other surface detail.
Other features include a one-piece main gun barrel with separate muzzle brake and detailed mantlet with canvas look dust cover, separate hatches, including the commander's cupola, and a pintle-mounted 50 caliber machine gun.
Clear plastic is used for headlights, periscopes, and the cupola's vision blocks. And photo etch brass supplies brush guards, handles, brackets, and more fine details.
Decals provide markings for 2 U.S. tanks in Germany in 1945, including a paper doll in overall olive drab and a 12th Armored Division M4A3E8 in two-tone olive drab and black camo.
Ryefield's entry into the crowded Sherman market looks like a winner.
After a couple of heavy hitters, let's take a look at a fun reissue from Doll and Hobby, Georgia, the classic Land of the Giants diorama.
This kit originated with Aurora in 1968 when the Irwin Allen TV series of the same name was new. It featured a group of travelers that suddenly find themselves in a world of things bigger than they are.
The kit was reissued by Polar Lights in 2002.
The scene centers around a giant coiled rattlesnake. The serpent builds from a separate tail, arching neck, if snakes can have necks, and a sharply molded head with gaping mouth, revealing internal parts and fangs.
3 members of the Spindrift crew, Steve Burton, Dan Erickson, and Betty Hamilton, face down the snake, armed only with a safety pin.
A base forms the battleground, and there are a few tufts of grass to dress it up.
What sets this release apart is the inclusion of a nicely printed backdrop to give the model more atmosphere. It's double-sided, so you can include the Spindrift if you want, or partially obscure the ship for more depth. Nice addition to a fun kit packed with drama and nostalgia.
Look for reviews of the Hellcat and Sherman in upcoming issues of FineScale Modeler magazine.
And you can find more new products in our spacey July issue on sale now.
Thanks for visiting FineScale.com. I'm Elizabeth.
Crash. Always and forever, Elizabeth Crash.
The inside of the fuselage has fuselage has molded frames and longerons. My faith, don't forget your longerons.